Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into Tesla, take a look at some of the things that Tesla is doing around future-proofing their strategies, and we're going to do it with an analyst I think you guys will like. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into TechPath. Joining me today, of course, is Mr. Ross Gerber, coming in to us from Gerber Kawasaki. Great to have you on the show again.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Yeah. Last time we had you on, we had a lot of things happening within the world of Tesla. Of course, you know, in the world of Tesla, all things are happening again, and a lot of things I think that are brewing. I wanted to get your opinion on a few strategies that are starting to evolve, especially in the electric vehicle space, and how it pertains to some of the, groundbreaking technology that we've seen. One of the things that's happening right now is Uber striking a deal with the China, BYD. So first of all, what was your opinion when you first saw this news story and any of the research behind it?
Well, my first thought, just in disclosure, I own Uber as a stock, and it's not a big position, but I like Uber for autonomy. My original thought process, because Tesla is actually one of Uber's biggest customers, because when you buy a Tesla, like the services center, people will drop off your car and they'll take an Uber back, or when you need to take in your car for service, they give you Uber. And so literally Tesla spends millions of dollars on Uber. And so I was like, this is such a natural thing. So if you want to be an Uber driver, you can go to Uber and they'll lease you a Tesla. And, they've always had this relationship. So in my heart, like part of the premise for me was that Tesla would go to Uber and say, hey, listen, we're doing a Robotaxi. We want you to sell these to your drivers. And, the truth is eventually they'll be entrepreneurs, because then they might not even have to drive the car, and they'll own the car and they'll be able to make revenue from this. And so Uber drivers don't have to become sort of extinct. They can evolve. And it was like a perfect partnership in my mind. So when they came out with the BYD thing, it was like getting kicked in the gut in a way for Tesla. And I spent weeks thinking about it. Like, do we need robo-taxis? Like, let's just start with that. Like, are drivers so bad that, I need to have a robo-taxi when I can call an Uber and in 2 minutes there's an Uber here? Now, I'm also in a neighborhood that is served by Waymo. And yesterday when I was driving home in horrendous traffic, beach traffic, people everywhere, Santa Monica, a Waymo drives by me, level 5, no driver, cruising. And I'm like, dude, Tesla's not even ahead in this game. Yeah. Okay. Because like, if you can drive in Santa Monica, and I used to challenge Waymo, like, oh yeah, you can do San Francisco in a closed circuit, come to Santa Monica where it's insane and the drivers are crazy. And Waymo's here now and they've mastered it, and I'm still disengaging my full self-driving all the time. And there's been a big debate about the videos people post on YouTube and such about full self-driving and how accurate they are to the actual experience. And I use full self-driving all the time, and there's no doubt in my mind that it's a level 2 system. It's not close to level 3. I would not put my child in this and get in the back seat and let it drive me anywhere. It's just not there. Like, I don't know how else to say it. So BYD's technology is pretty good, and they're really good at these things like autonomy and making EVs. And they are the most legitimate competitor to Tesla in the world. And so with Uber partnering with them, and certainly this is, I think, mostly an Asia and Europe thing, and maybe eventually a US thing, but BYD doesn't really try to sell their cars in the United States because it's Chinese. So this is really now standing out as the major competitor to Tesla's robotaxi dreams. And then secondly, by Google and Waymo. So Tesla's far behind both of these people now. And I think that doesn't bode well for pivoting from selling great EVs with great technology to being a robotaxi company.
With that being the case, and you look at all of these pressures, Tesla continuing to kind of go into other areas. One of the areas that they also are starting to venture in from Elon's analysis is into the AI play out.
Right.
Maybe this is already one as well. Do you think Tesla's move into AI is, I shouldn't say Tesla, it's really more of a Musk companies in general?
Yeah, it's really XAI, which is another really negative valuation thing for Tesla. Like, obviously, we all know that there is no board of directors at Tesla, and they're not going to protect outside shareholders. The board of directors of Tesla works for Elon and only cares about Elon's interests. So I think investors have to understand that when they invest in Tesla, that they're going to do what's best for Elon. And so they shipped Tesla chips to XAI. XAI is running the AI programs for Grok and whatever else he's building. And Tesla has no AI. You know, like, what's their AI? Their AI is full self-driving, and full self-driving is an application of AI, which they haven't mastered yet. So then secondly, he's training this on data that's flawed, which is another problem. So using Twitter data, for example, as some sort of reality of something is like fantastical. It's the most corrupted, manipulated database you could possibly learn from. I can't even imagine how warped this Twitter-based AI is going to be. You know, like, it's going to be super warped. You know, and Twitter's gotten more warped than it's ever been now. So I can only imagine what Grok is thinking. That said, Tesla doesn't even have a voice assistant that works in the car. You know, it's like Siri. So if I'm in a Tesla, I can't even do that. So there's a company we're very close to, we're watching, and it's called SoundHound. And SoundHound makes AI solutions for cars for voice activation. Stellantis just did a deal with them. They've built this already. So, like, all the competitors are going to have a better voice assistant than Tesla because they're so busy building something that's going to tell you the current events for Twitter instead of building stuff that's going to help a Tesla driver find the best restaurants and order the best food on the way to their supercharger, you know? So nobody at Tesla is building AI from my perspective of what would benefit Tesla drivers, you know?
Yeah. Well, I want to play a clip for you because I think this also clarifies some areas that are happening within AI, and it could maybe put a lot of these companies maybe out of business in the sense of where the future is going. Let's go to this clip real quick.
When you open source Llama, I thought Llama 2 was probably the biggest event in AI last year.
I'm pretty optimistic that in the next generation, the open ones are going to win. There have just been too many things that I've tried to build and then have just been told, nah, you can't really build that by the platform provider, that at some level I'm just like, nah, fuck that. For the next generation,
there goes our broadcast opportunity.
Yeah, no, sorry.
H100, I think you're coming up on 600,000. And
we're good customers. That's how you get the Jensen Q&A at SIGGRAPH.
Yeah, the point that he's getting at is that, hey, maybe this race is already over with open sourcing Llama, which obviously goes head to head with OpenAI. And again, back into does Tesla or Elon even need to go the direction of building an AI if we in fact have these kinds of moves happening already? What are your thoughts?
I love NVIDIA and I love Jensen and even Mark Zuckerberg and his weird new look is maybe growing on me. Not just the hair, it's the chain. So anyways, I think that there's no reason to build Grok. Like, there's already OpenAI, chat is great. You know, Google's working super hard on this stuff. Facebook's working hard on this stuff. So Elon's just trying to get in front of the, crowd and stay relevant and build something. But as I said, I think fundamentally he's building something that doesn't need to exist on bad data. And so what Zuck is saying is really smart because Facebook also has a ton of bad data and old data and questionable data. And, you say, okay, so he's like, oh, I'm open source and I'm just like spending tons of money, Facebook money. And for Facebook, they have an application in that I place ads on Facebook and I can use AI to get better results because Apple's made it very hard for me to make money on ads. So for Meta, we saw their earnings report like in the stock rallied, and we're seeing them a real beneficiary because they have a platform that now everybody uses and will stick with, which is Instagram and Threads. And I don't think people use Facebook anymore, really, like young people, but Instagram is still the king. But
very relevant.
With the demise of Twitter, it's made Instagram more relevant, actually. So Elon's actually helped Zuckerberg have better data, better situation. And now Zuck's gone all in. And if I don't own Meta because morally I think Instagram's just like cigarettes, but boy, they're doing it the right way. I think they're doing, like, as an advertiser, I can get value from this today.
All right, so I want to play another clip for you because now we're off of AI and moving on to what some of the other automakers are doing. And one of them in particular is starting to do something I think that is, one, innovative, and two, is starting to maybe break down some walls in the blockchain side of things. Let me play this clip from Toyota.
Japanese automotive giant Toyota is leveraging Ethereum blockchain in designing vehicle mobility-oriented account, that's MOA. Now, the design proposes creating blockchain digital accounts for cars, potentially enabling fully autonomous driving in the future. Recently unveiled as part of Toyota's Mobility 3.0 concept, the project focuses on exploring mobility through a smart account on the blockchain. Introducing vehicle mobility onto public blockchains brings tokenizing rights, making a car function as a completely independent service entity.
Using data integrated with infrastructure, you can deliver goods quickly and efficiently to the customers who ordered them.
The role of cars will be to connect to society and expand the possibilities. You'll be able to go shopping from an app in your car. After parking, you can share electricity in energy grid mode to help the community. It's infinitely customizable depending on the customer's needs.
Arriving in the city, it quickly transforms into a farm stand. In a city square, it can turn into a coffee shop or a food truck. At night, it can become a bar. There will be more new business possibilities and new partners in the value chain.
All right, so there's Toyota really kind of starting to go out on the edge a little bit.
Yeah.
Head to head here with Tesla. I mean, they're building something that is quite a bit different than the Cybertruck, which seems to be much more useful, at least in the potential, but also utilizing blockchain, of course, trying to tie into network and potentially the future of how EVs are going to be done. Do you think Tesla has missed the boat here on innovation?
What the tech people and the business people might think humans want is often wrong. And the more complicated things are, the less humans want to deal with that. You know, we actually prefer simplicity. Like, I want to turn on Netflix, I want to find all my shows, but now I've got 7 apps and that sucks because I can't find my shows. And so I'll just stick with my Netflix because it's just easier. And that's the way humans are. Now, the younger generation is the laziest generation that's ever been, created in America. And I don't mean this in a negative way. They look at the world differently than older generation people. They're much more comfortable with less wealth and income. And that's fine with them. But the idea that we're all going to change our behaviors massively around technology isn't actually what's going to happen. And it was sort of like Steve Jobs' brilliance was he understood what consumers wanted and built technology for that versus building technology that you think consumers might want, And so, for example, like mobility, people all want their own cars. I'm sorry. People want their own cars. They customize their cars. Even within the Tesla community, you will find hundreds of different wraps and rims and customized options because Tesla doesn't offer you anything more than a base car. And Tesla drivers are not happy just driving a black Model Y or a white Model Y. And so they're spending money with lots of great companies like Unplugged Performance and all that customize the cars. A car is an extension of a person's personality. That's what it is. And so the idea that we're all going to want to take these cabs that are ubiquitous and all the same, and the only purpose of life is to get from A to B, doesn't understand humans at all. It just doesn't understand humans at all. And humans are not giving up driving their cars anytime soon. Okay, so we will have a robotaxi. We will have technologies that are super cool, but will that make money? Will that be a viable business? Probably not. And then when you extrapolate out Toyota, probably one of the most confused companies that you could, find in the last 5 years about what the future is, and they just switched leadership, and all this kind of stuff. They are not the leader of vehicles. They are catching up now to the leader, which is Tesla. Tesla owns the crown. Okay. They own the crown, and they are simply giving up the crown to competitors because of a lack of focus and because the CEO, Elon Musk, has decided to infuriate basically everybody. So unless you're basically a white supremacist, he's probably insulted you. Oh, and by the way, the Europeans are a lot like the people in California. So don't think anybody in Europe is excited about Tesla, because they're not. And so I'm like, what is Elon doing? So I call it anti-marketing. Elon's like the anti-marketer for Tesla. He convinces people not to buy the car, despite it being the best car with the best technology, the best experience, the best at everything. And they're still selling cars by lowering prices. But the king of the company, all he can do is piss off all the people who live in the kingdom every day.
One thing I want to hit on is a clip from you and I. This was quite some time ago, and we were talking about data. And I want to present this because I think this hits to your point, but maybe in the sense that it might change your opinion on how young people might be willing to do something. Let me play this clip for you. What happens if we get an open source element around data ownership, which could come in Web3, and where would Tesla's position be on that?
So if I make that open source, I lose a lot of power, But I think from an idea perspective, open source is amazing.
We're all gonna own it. We're gonna own the data. People thought that I was loco in the brain. That will never work. Well, they are forced to, thanks to the EU Data Act. And how it works is, so they go to a kind of, we call it marketplace, and they ask you, hey, Mr. Driver, can you share your data? I'm gonna give you 5 tokens in return. So you get paid now for sharing your own data. You can use all the tokens that you've got over here and pay for a portion for the insurance contract or replacement of tires, whatever. On the right side, you see it. Europe is already part of our shareholder. The app will be released in September.
All right, so this is a blockchain platform, but of course, looking at the
we were
GDP,
much younger then.
Yeah, we looked good. But the point was, is we talked about this very issue, is that the open source would eventually occur. Owners owning their own data. Now that drills down into automotive data, which when you look at the amount of data that is collected by Tesla, I drive one, you drive one, what our profiles are, where, everything about that car is being transmitted back to the mothership. This could impact possibly maybe the future of how data is collected by Tesla, especially in the EU. And especially if it goes in, especially if it goes into the driver now retaining ownership of that data and Tesla no longer having. What does that do for Tesla as a global car company going forward?
Well, you're bringing up some very important and interesting issues about privacy and data. So our data has been basically like stolen from us by all these companies all these years and used for whatever way they want. And then, Europe really was progressive with their laws, and it's really tough for a lot of these companies because they have to protect your data. God forbid, right? I kind of believe at some point the individual will have a legal right to protect their data in the United States, in Europe, and companies will have to ask permission and or compensate people for that data. And if everybody goes into their Tesla, you can say I don't want to share my data, and if everybody starts doing that, it's detrimental to the data collectors.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And, this is exactly what happened with Apple and Meta when Apple was like, you're done scraping everything off our phones and shut them down. And then the advertisers couldn't target. And for a couple quarters, they were really eating crow because the ads just didn't work as well. They just didn't work.
Hammered. Yeah.
So then they figured out some way around this, I think. But that said, what we do, that data is extremely valuable to lots of companies, whether it's Netflix and our viewing habits, to driving, where we go, Uber, where we like to go on New Year's Eve, and when's the busiest time frames. And, so open sourcing data has a lot of advantages for smaller players, so if I want to have competitors to the big companies, open source is a great way to do it. So allowing people to have access to data that aren't Google and Meta, the big companies, gives them an equal playing field. Because what really keeps these monopolies in charge, whether it be Apple or whatever, is the fact that they do control your data and they do know everything about you, and they can serve ads or sell you products or hardware and software knowing exactly what you do and what you want, and that's why they're the most valuable companies in the world. So if we're going to make the world a better place, there's a lot of upside to, that's why I'm a big fan of Bitcoin and blockchain technology and sort of open source information. And then how do we build things that are actually beneficial for society, not just for commerce?
Right, for sure. Well, I think the point you're getting at is this just put a lot more in the consumer's hand, the individual that, is actually, developing the data itself on a day in, day out basis. One of the things that we hit on in our last interview was we were talking about the company Hivemapper. This is a company that pays you to go out and map city streets. So you think about this as Google Maps, it's kind of maybe the next future. A lot has happened since we last talked, Ross. I want to play a clip for you, and then I want to show you something real quick. You look at what, I think it was Hivemapper. Here's another one. Do you think Tesla will ever make those kinds of leaps forward in terms of Web3 technology integrations?
Well, some of that is just gimmick. It's like gimmicky. People are really into Web3. And
it's the future, Ross. It's the future.
It's not the future.
5 months ago, what has been done in that period of time?
About to hit 6 million unique road kilometers mapped. That's about 10% of the world's roads mapped.
You guys already mapped out 20% of the world's roads in probably a little over 18 months. And that's an incredible accomplishment in itself.
So this company, a blockchain company that is, and we've used these devices, we've checked them out here in our studio before, some of our tech team does it. Now 25% global coverage, mapping really accelerating. Even me, I was surprised, and I talked to their CEO a couple of times at how efficient they've been able to get this done. They're getting ready to add in a new camera technology into this device and their system, because they basically pay you as an individual, a car owner, to put this camera in your car and go out and map all these roads. Now they're going into spatial computing, which is going to change the dynamics around everything. Spatial computing, why would Elon not go this route with spatial computing cameras on the front of all these Teslas, if in fact we could share the data, because that opens up a whole new layer of potential revenue for Tesla? What are your thoughts?
So the data that Google's collecting is really, really good data on our roads and 3D maps of our roads. And with their mapping history and their, Google Earth satellite history, Google is a master of these kind of things, like mapping every road. So these kind of companies can go do this, but depending on the kind of cameras they use and the systems they use, they have to be able to work with the hardware and the software together. And so that means all the other people have to use the camera systems that these people have used. And one of the issues Tesla has is your camera systems have to be really good. So when you're putting in like hardware 3 in Teslas, it uses a certain camera system. And hardware 4 uses a much better camera system, digital cameras that are much higher quality. And one of the things Tesla's learning, which they haven't admitted yet, is that this isn't the best way to do it. Okay? Why? Well, because those cameras can't compete with your eyes. They just really just can't. So in the Cybertruck, it has really good cameras, and it's really helpful in driving the Cybertruck, especially parking it. And the quality of the video is super good, but it's not your eye. You know what I'm saying? And so this is the challenge that all mapping. So Google's spending $250,000 on these cars that are mapping, and that's just using tons of tech, LiDAR, whatever. And so what I fear is that many of the systems that people perceive will work are not good enough to work in real life, integrated with human behavior. Yeah. So
well, I think the key there, though, Ross, is going to be the freshness of the data. The fact that you got companies out there that are deploying. Yeah. Well, and they're deploying, whether it is the advanced technology. Obviously, as you know, in tech, everything is a race to zero. So the cost of building spatial computing cameras are going to get lower and lower. So
but
the
like right now,
they're
not. Like spatial computing cameras are not cheap. And
that is true. I mean, the device that Hivemapper sells is fairly pricey, but at the same time, they're rewarding on the back end through a tokenized system to be able to get that mapping data in. Again, decentralized mapping, which is a benefit for privacy, security, all those kind of things. Right. And it also doesn't put Google in the middle of holding everything. Speaking of that, so I'll leave it at that in the sense of, because I think we are on the same page of the technology that's required for it to go in that direction. This is a point in looking at revenue on Tesla, and this surprised me, and this is Tesla is banking billions in regulatory emission credits. I didn't realize this was happening to this level.
Yeah.
And that is 1.79 billion in regulatory credit revenue last year. The likelihood is we could see some tokenization of this. And this, of course, would all live on what most likely would, especially if you look at how BlackRock and what Securitized has done, which is, their tokenized real world security assets. Could that play into this for things like regulatory credits in the future that would, of course, lean in on things like Ethereum and all of that? What are your thoughts on this as a strategy for Tesla in the future, especially around these credits?
I think for me, I think the blockchain and I think using these types of systems makes a lot of sense in many ways, but it's been very difficult to apply this actually in actuality. And so I think there's many things like real estate that can be tokenized and put on the blockchain and traded. And I just think it's like all these technologies, it just takes a long time.
Yeah.
For these things to happen.
You're talking about, we're encroaching now on up to almost 200 million people that own crypto in some way.
Right.
And this is globally, globally. That's a significant number. Does this go to 1 billion users over the next decade? Yeah, I think this is a potential curve that we're going to be on. So to your point, there is a subset of society that's always going to be kind of lagging. But one of the areas that is never lagging is gaming and the gaming culture. And we've seen this 100%. All the way back into the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s.
100%.
Gaming,
this is one of my secrets.
Culture.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is one of my secrets. Yeah.
Why has Tesla not gone the direction of gaming? I was just looking at some of the things that have been done here already. We see a lot of gaming in the Web3 space. We're continuing to see this. This is just showing some of the Playtron.
I'm gonna have to disagree with that. I can go play video games on my Tesla right now. They're the only car company in the world that I can play video games in my car now.
Well, localized, yes. Why not double down on this? If gaming is such a societal connection, why do you think Tesla has not really doubled down on this? Why don't we have a Tesla, like a remote Tesla Steam? I mean, I'm just looking at the things that you could do, like a Steam Deck
all
for
day
Tesla.
Long.
Yeah.
I have this thing because I want to make it clear, I don't want to be the CEO of Tesla, but if I was the CEO of Tesla, things would be very different than it is today, because what I would be doing is leaning in exactly that.
Yeah.
One of the things, so I drive a Cybertruck and I have a Plaid too, Tesla Model S Plaid, and I've been driving the Cybertruck. And one thing is 100% of children love the Cybertruck. 50% of adults hate the Cybertruck. 100% of kids love the Cybertruck. I'm more popular than Mickey Mouse when I drive through the neighborhood. Okay. And why do kids love it so much? It's because it's a vision of the future. But then they get in the car, and the first thing my kid does is he puts on his YouTube and starts watching it in the back seat, or they want a game in my car, and I'm like, it gets annoying because they won't leave the car. They want to do the fart sounds. It's the only car that I know of that has fart sounds. I mean, you can make fun of it or whatever, but this is the kind of consumer stuff that sells cars. It just does. Yeah. And this was the brilliance of Tesla in its early days. And when Elon was focused and Tesla was his baby, that's why this happened, because Elon's a gamer too. We're the same age. I grew up gaming. I'm still a gamer. I game a lot. And I found NVIDIA, 10 plus years ago, thanks to gaming. I had no idea they'd be building AI chips today. It's been one of the best investments of my career. But when you think about what Tesla could be doing is leaning in on the positive side of the consumer experience that they've been so successful with. Their interface is better than anybody's. This is my single greatest source of frustration, is that I still think that they make the best cars with the best interface, and full self-driving is still great and it's helpful and I use it. Autopilot's great for the freeways. It can take me all the way to San Diego without intervention. The communication services in the car, I can do Zoom calls in the car. It's genius. Whenever I rent a car, it always reminds me how far ahead Tesla is. Now, I have a Rivian now too, okay? And Rivian is a great company, and they have good software. but it's still, they don't have fart sounds. They don't have video games. They don't have the consumer experience even close yet to what Tesla's at. And so Rivian is a close second, but still got a lot of work to do. And so I think that's the opportunity in Tesla. If somebody came back and showed it some love, if Elon did, Tesla would be great.
Yeah, keep innovating. Well, I think charging network, there's many things I continue to see.
Storage.
Yes, all the things that we've talked about before around the future of it. And I think also the promise of what Tesla really was, back to your point, is that the innovations at Tesla used to come out by the dozens every month. It was like you couldn't keep up with the amount, and I've started to see this tells you when something's wrong, is when you see less and less podcasters that were just focused on Tesla, and they've started to deviate onto other things because there's not enough news. There's not enough news.
Well, that and they're kind of going out of business. It's like the way it was like all of us Tesla supporters and fans supported each other, and it was a wonderful community, and it was kind of based around clean energy. It's kind of based around the environmental mission, which many of us, including myself, is the main driver, one of my main investment themes. But in my personal life, I care about the environment as one of the most important things from a charitable perspective, and also just from a life perspective. And so it built a wonderful community. And then you saw all the podcasters grow and the different websites around EVs and the writers like Electric and all these great blogs about EVs. And then when Elon bought Twitter and pivoted away from being a guy who sells EVs and cares about the environment, who lives in California and is liberal, to a guy who lives in Texas who basically, is complete opposite of that guy he used to be, it's shattered the community in many ways. So it's either you are on Elon's side or you're a bad guy, so they've made me into a bad guy, the guy who was there when Elon needed help for the last 10 years, investing millions of dollars, supporting the company in many ways that people never saw, behind the scenes. And, I get it. Elon got tired of me saying he was doing stupid stuff, but I'm sorry, it's my opinion, and he doesn't have to respect it. That's fine. But I think the stock price, speaks for itself. It's down 40% over the last 3 years, and it's because of Twitter, and that's the only reason. And so, Elon Musk has tremendous potential when he's focused on what's important, and I think that fixed Tesla. But the community is dead now, because it's basically people arguing all the time that if you say anything that's critical, then you're a bad guy, and then you've got to make excuses for everything Elon does every day if you're a blogger. So it's really hard to be a YouTuber on Tesla now because you basically have to make excuses every day.
Yeah, it's a constant scenario. Do you think the value of the stock right now is on point with the company at trading at around 207 right now?
No, I think it's vastly overvalued.
Overvalued still. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, you can look at a company like, I love the cars, I love the company, and then you can look at a stock, and a stock has to trade based off what its future earnings potential is. Okay. Right. It's not if I can invent 100 things that don't make money, that's not going to make the stock go up. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And so stocks go up based off return of capital and investment and real cash flow. And those numbers are going down at Tesla. So the question would be, what will get the numbers in Tesla to go up? Okay. Because then the stock should trade at a multiple similar to NVIDIA or Microsoft, like 40 to 50 times forward earnings, which is a very high multiple. Okay. Once again, these are big numbers, and anybody who thinks 100 PE is something normal is wrong. My basic premise is 20 PE or less is what we want to pay for stocks, and especially with higher growth rates than 20%. So that's what we look for. Is Tesla fall into that? And in no way, shape, or form, so it's not cheap by any means. And so when you say, how does Tesla get their earnings to double? Because that's what has to happen.
That's what
if they're at $2.50 a share, how do they get to $5 a share? Okay. So let's just chart out that path. How do they get to $5 a share in earnings? Well, two things have to happen. They have to sell more cars and not lose more margin. So margin must stay the same. Let's just assume margin is not going to go up. So margin must stay the same, and they have to sell more cars. Okay. And then earnings would go up, right? Okay. Simple formula. And so you say, how do we sell more cars in the same margin? And it's not, having street fights with Maduro in Venezuela that doesn't actually sell cars. As I said, it's an anti-marketing campaign. So Tesla has to lower margins and the price to sell cars because the people will only buy them based off price now because it doesn't align with anybody's values. So this is why I'm like, well, what should Tesla be? Well, if it does $250 in earnings and you give it 50 times, or even if you give them $3 in earnings, you do 50 times, you're at 150. You know, so you give them even benefit of doubt. I think estimates for next year's at 320, even though I think that's foolish. You know, so then you say it's 165 or 160. You know,
sure.
So you know, Tesla's overvalued by those standards. You know,
yeah, for sure.
So do I think they can right the ship? Absolutely. Do they have great assets and technology? Absolutely. But it just doesn't matter if the CEO doesn't care about selling cars. And now he's made it clear that he doesn't want to sell cars. He wants to do robotaxis. He wants to do robots. And if you want to talk about robots, I'm not a big believer that people are going to be having like robots in their houses anytime soon. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's another problem.
Well, we'll get to save that one for another day, but Ross Gerber, great to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for stopping in. Of course, if you guys want to learn a little bit more about what Ross is doing, just go over and visit Gerber Kawasaki. You can learn a little bit about them. Thanks again for coming in today. We appreciate it, Ross.
Yeah, thanks for having you. Good to see you.
You bet.
It's nice to see those old videos.
It is fun. Maybe you're on the YouTube channel here. Make sure and subscribe. And of course, the best thing to do is jump into the Diamond Circle. It's a great place to get additional content from us. If you're not following me out there on X, it's just Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.